Professor Julia King, Vice-Chancellor of Aston University, is the author of one of the most important studies into how Britain should cope with climate change. The King Review looked at technology options for reducing CO2 emissions from road transport, especially private cars.
Transport currently makes up about 14% of world CO2 emissions, and those of us in the developed world, in order to allow the developing countries to continue to move towards the same kind of standards of living for their people that we have a huge responsibility to reduce our CO2 output. If we take the major areas for CO2 emissions, and transport is, I think, the fastest growing at the moment, that means our challenge is to almost decarbonise them by 2050. We've taken a lot of evidence from consumer organisations, from green organisations, from people like the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, from fuel companies, from car manufacturers, from car club organisations, from a whole range of people who've got an interest in this area, basically. We've sat down and done a lot of thinking. But the findings so far are extremely positive. I feel very bullish about them. There really is an opportunity to have a very dramatic effect on our CO2 emissions from cars. The goal of decarbonising cars by 2050 is one that we should absolutely be aiming for.
Professor King's review says that new vehicle technologies delivering major reductions in CO2 could become available in 5 to 10 years. This zero-emission battery-powered commercial vehicle produced in Coventry is just one possible way forward.
There is a lot of technology that could go very quickly into current vehicles, without major changes to the vehicle design. Things like the stop-start, which is much more common in some of the other European countries than it is here, that turns your car off at lights and things and turns it back on again. That can save, in different situations, 5 to 8% of your fuel consumption. So that could go into cars, very quickly indeed. There are also lots of approaches to for example, storing the energy on braking, rather than having it dissipated as heat, and being able to feed that back into the subsequent propulsion of the vehicle. I think there are some really exciting opportunities. But there are also other things we can all do today as consumers. There's a very good campaign that the Department for Transport are currently running called Act on CO2, which just points out to all of us the ways that we are not very thoughtful about our CO2 usage on driving. It points out how much energy you waste by increasing the air resistance of your car by leaving the roof rack on or driving with the windows open, how much effect leaving all of your junk in the boot has by increasing the weight of your car, by not having your tyres pumped up to the right pressure and therefore not getting the optimal road resistance. So we can all make small changes like that which can save a few percent, and indeed we can all think much harder about the next car we buy and look at buying a lower emissions car, because actually a lower emissions car is going to save us money by using less fuel, and a lower emissions car is going to have a higher residual value when you come to sell it second hand, because the pressure on CO2 emissions is going to go up, not down, as we move into the future. It's probably something like 40% of consumers who are interested in and aware of green issues, but are not really taking any action yet. And I think that's the real opportunity. We've got to get those consumers better informed and actually motivated to make different decisions. Our history is of being, through the 19th and the early 20th century, is of being a very innovative and entrepreneurial region. And the industries which the innovators of that period created have now moved out and gone elsewhere. And we now need to help with regenerating the region. We now need the innovators of the future. So we need to start encouraging them in schools. And it'll be great to see them developing into young people who then start their own companies and are supported by the kind of infrastructure we have in place through the Science City projects.